And now we see that what would be the opposition is firmly within government. You, as a have always been quite clear about the position that ODM sat with.
Yeah.
Has that changed?
No, my position has remained the same. I think for me the biggest political change we have experienced in the past year and a half is the realization by Mwananchi that they are more powerful than the leaders. I think for me that is the thing that gives me the greatest pride. For a very long time, we in the elected leadership have held ourselves out as being more knowledgeable, more superior to the people. But after June 25th, Kenyans realize that they are very powerful, and all of these people who are prancing and beating their chests, they know deep inside that they can be gotten to. I think that was the biggest political change for me, and I'm extremely proud to be a Kenyan who lives in a country where the people know that they are more powerful than the elected leadership. So that even when you hear some of the statements coming from the leaders, my view is that these people are very afraid. If you look at the pronouncements of the president and the people around his circles, those are people who are afraid. The fear that has struck them because they have realized that there's very little time left to change those political tides that you speak about, and they are speaking from a position of fear. So when you hear people threaten to top up the votes, because they are aware that the votes will not meet the threshold required for him to get a second term. So they are actually talking about now openly schemes to steal the election, which is why I am extremely encouraged, because when you hear that, you know for a fact that they also know. When you hear Farah Maalim insulting the public and the president does not say anything in terms of reprimanding them or bringing them back to their senses or to their line, you know they know.
Do you think, because you operate obviously within the same circles.
Yes.
Do you think they believe the things that they are actually saying? Because if they do, and I think it is beyond just changing political tides, it is changing and perhaps scary political tides. If folks who are saying the things that they are saying, and they are in the same circles now, whereby there was an opposition, and I say that deliberately, whereby there was an opposition, but all of these people are now in the same room, drinking the same coffee, doing the same thing, and we hear some of these statements that we're hearing. Do they believe the things that they say, or are they saying them to
in fairness, these statements are not new. If you remember the conversation around the finance bill of 2023, the finance bill of 2024, this language is not new. It has not been brought about by a few of members of the opposition joining government. The wapende wasipende language was there. I remember during that conversation, people like Sifuna who is still the majority whip, telling Kenyans that it doesn't matter how much noise you make, we will not change even a comma. But after the shift, the political shift that has happened, they know that they are living on borrowed time. And Kenyans are just sitting there watching them, because you cannot scare anyone. You cannot scare anyone, because if the government was a government that was confident in its ability to convince people to give it another term, they would be speaking about the things that they have done in the period between the election and now that guarantees that re-election. They would be telling us the kilometers of road they have tarmacked, the number of jobs, hospitals they have built. But they know, because as I've said, this particular time in this country, we want to talk about our software. It doesn't matter how many roads you build. If you are going to abduct people for just criticizing you or depicting you as a dead person, then that is the elephant crushing the rat that that city was talking about. And we want to deal with the software issues in this country. People want to live in a free society. People want proper democracy where there is freedom of media, there's freedom of expression, and that you will not be punished for having a different opinion from those in power. So when you hear those statements, in fact, Kenyans should be very confident now that they have these people by the, I don't know if I
the short and curly.
Shorts and curlies.
Yes, by the shorts and curlies.
It's a family show.
Now, you've said before that the president cannot take care of Kenyans.
Yes.
And that he has lost Kenyans.
Yes.
At what point did he get it wrong? And what will it take for him to get Kenyans back? Ama imeenda.
You know, I mean, it has been a process. It has been a process. It began with the finance bill in 2023. In fact, after they were elected, you know, the way in which you speak to the people who are your bosses, it really matters. And the constitutional principles that dictate that you must listen to us. At the end of the day, if you look at Article 73, 74, 75 under our constitution, these leadership positions are not a kingship. It is not for you to come and now walk on our heads.
We are not a monarchy.
Correct. We are not a monarchy. If it requires that you listen to the people, you cannot talk to us in the manner in which they were talking to us in 2023. I remember when we were in the streets in 2023, trying to discuss questions about the cost of living, and we were brutalized. A proper one. A proper one. These guys, sometimes I hear these Latter-day Saints speaking about these freedoms. Yeah. It is good to have a Damascus moment, but we must also remind you that you tried to kill us here in Kware. Yeah. Hey, that was you waking up at 5 a.m. going to your office saying, hey, let's see who will come in the streets and talking about the final solution.
And we'll deal with
the final solution, City, you know what that means?
It means you and your maker.
Correct, yes. So that is where it began. And they totally lost it when the crescendo of public outcry became even louder, but the leadership remained tone deaf. And I remember saying one time that if you insist on playing deaf, we will slap those ears until you listen to us. Yes, and I feel that is exactly what Kenyans did to remove the wax from their ears, and it won't matter, because for me, I'm very clear that the most important factor in politics and in leadership is the people. For as long as you've left the people behind, it doesn't matter how many leaders you have around you. I have given the example of our own experience in 2022. We had more party leaders and political parties that we could sit. We had more principles than I could count on my two hands, you know, and we still came up short. So Kenyans should not worry. It doesn't matter how many MPs you see, and some of those even from my own political party, they are saying it openly that they know the cow is dying, but they can see there's still some milk in the udder. They will not let the cow die without with that milk in the udder. So basically, it is the greed of some of these politicians. I see them speaking, and the beauty with ODM, our members across the country, we are a movement of 5 million people. Over registered members. They know all of us. They know the journeymen, they know the traders, they know the fair weather friends, they know people who are there to do business, to do transactions with the small positions that you've been given. You call yourself a chairman of a county, but all you do is to trade with that position. People know all of us.
Do you think that those individuals that they know will remain the last men standing, as it were?
What?
Will they?
Everybody. In fact, if you speak to the ordinary members of ODM, they know the people who understand that we've been given an assignment. In fact, those of us at the national leadership have a greater responsibility than some of these members you hear making noise here, because it's like in African culture, your father has gone away to look for something, and he has left the homestead in certain hands. It will be my biggest loss if my father comes back after handing the homestead in my hands, and then he comes back, he finds his wife, one of his wives left. I sold all his cows. He has no place to put his head because I sold the home. I mean, that responsibility on me as SG of ODM is greater than the responsibility that is on, say, some of these elected members that you hear making noise because over the Christmas period, the president gave them employment letters for TSC, 10 of them, to employ their cronies. We want to build a country where the TSC does not give letters of employment to members of parliament. No. There should be a proper meritocracy that everybody who's qualified to be employed at TSC has a way of accessing these employment opportunities. So all of Sifuna's friends, because I have been clear in my mind that ODM is a party that exists to compete with power with all other political parties, including UDA. My relatives did not get employment letters for TSC. Right. But it is okay. Some of these young people have waited for 8 years, I am sure they can wait for 2 more years.
2 more years.
And then we build a country of meritocracy where you don't need to know Sifuna to access those opportunities that they are dishing out through his members of parliament. So the level of deceit that is in our politics is shocking to some of us, and we want to put an end to this culture, because when you hear those members talking, some of them, you are called to set house for as low as 100,000 shillings. That is money I can give Ruto myself. Yeah. It's true.
Okay.
As a member of parliament, you know how much money I earn.
Yeah.
It is possible for me to give Ruto a loan of 100,000 shillings.
If he needs
you
it,
can't, yes, if he needs it, if he's in a fix, he can call me.
So are we saying essentially, and then what would the consequences be? That if some folks have flown the coop for this thing that we are talking about, you're a little bit more money in the hands, because we know, I mean, the members of parliament who sat in that chair and told us, yes, we know that money changes hands for certain things. We know, you know. But if we're saying that folks have flown the coop when daddy's not around, essentially, then what does that portend when we're talking about a party essentially that is supposed to keep government and power in check when it is on the opposition side?
But that's what I want to persuade you, that in fact the party is not these characters that you see making noise in funerals and church services, praising the president and singing his hymns. That is not the party. ODM as a party, as I've told you, is a party of registered membership of over 5 million people. In parliament alone, there is 86 members in the National Assembly. There is 20 of us in the Senate. So there is one person in the Senate who is decided to become a court jester because he was lied to that he would be given some money to do a road in his county. Up to today, that road has not been done. And the truth of the matter is, you don't need to prostrate yourself before the head of state for your people to get development, because we all pay taxes.
Right,
In the National Assembly, we have 86 members. Now we are 83 because there is 3 pending by-elections, including 1 nominee seat. But out of those 83, the characters you hear in the news every day saying, oh, tutakufa na rais tuko hapo, there are no more than 5 people. So that tells you that it is not the party. There's people who are you know, what do they say, City? That if you can't stand by your values and your principles when they're being tested, it means they're just hobbies. They are not values. And there's people who, as Kiraitu would say, were too willing. You know, there's a story in the village of a girl who's waiting for suitors. And even if you pass by their homestead and you just happen to brush the fence,
it's over.
You hear her saying, wewe, kuja tu uongee na baba yangu, wacha kupita huko kwa barabara. Those are the kinds of characters you see here. Because they were almost too eager to milk this cow before it dies.
Edwin, are you saying that as a party, or the party leader of ODM did not endorse the movement of these individuals to join the government, that they went on their own will?
You see, there is something about the political arrangement currently, and it has been explained very well by Raila Odinga himself. As a foremost Democrat, somebody who believes in change of power through democratic means, there was fear amongst the political elite that if things went the way they were going in June of 24, nobody could guarantee the result or the outcome of that particular process, and whether we would even have a democracy to speak about.
We don't have a country.
Or a country indeed, city. So that the move to allow some of these people to join government was seen as a means of stabilizing the political situation. The democratic state, stabilizing the state as a democratic entity, so that we get an opportunity to kick out President Ruto in a proper forum at proper elections, as democracy dictates. That is the only explanation. And indeed, it does make sense, because at some point, everybody was worried about how this thing would pan out. And examples were given of the situation in places like Sudan, what happened with Egypt. And there was no one, even you, City, could not guarantee us that you knew the outcome of that particular process.
Nobody knew.
And immediately we had the army on the streets. I mean, it spooked everyone. You don't know those people.
Yes.
You don't know those people. Maybe in the next 20, 30 years, we would be speaking of Kenya in the terms of other countries that we've seen lose it completely. This democracy is a precious thing. And this is why many of us who believe in it will do whatever it takes to ensure that we remain a democratic state, and that when the opportunity comes, which is why I'm very happy with Kenyans right now. Kenyans are just looking at all of us. They are just looking at Oscar Sudi prancing around. They can hear what Farah Maalim is saying. They know they are afraid. They know they are afraid. And the day the ballot is put in our hands like this, people will go home en masse.
But is it the thing that I find strange, though? I can understand what you're saying. You have a critical situation and you need all hands on deck. But surely must they speak the way they speak in support of a government that clearly isn't serving the interests of its citizens?
No, they mustn't. And in fact, one of the questions I've asked and I'll keep asking is, how is it that it's only those CSs who came from ODM that have visibility? You know, some of us, if the Minister for Water walked here, I wouldn't know who that person is. I don't even know his name or her name. I don't know who those people are. Where are these other CSAs who came from UDA? Why don't they speak about 2027 in the terms like the way these 4 or 2? In fact, these days it is not all of them. It's just 2 guys.
Hazard a guess. Why would that be? Hazard a guess.
That's what I'm wondering. I keep asking myself, what is so special about these individuals that they are the only ones? And I have been in meetings because there was a point at which the leadership of the party thought that they were going overboard. And they were called in our presence as the central committee and told, first of all, you do not have power or authority to speak on behalf of either the Luos, your respective tribes, or the Luyas, or the people of the coast, or indeed the party. If you look at the constitution of ODM, the leadership is clear who can initiate even conversations about forming coalitions, and it has been done before. So they were told to stop making these sycophantic statements. But I don't know what happens to people when they are given the microphone in the presence of some of these leaders. You can just see somebody who looks giddy and overwhelmed, like some.
When thousands of people are listening,
that's what
to
I'm
you
wondering.
And you're the one with the soul voice, and everybody.
That's what I'm wondering.
Human nature will.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, you need to contain your excitement. That's the point. I don't think there is a room in this world that if I were put in and asked to speak, I would be so overwhelmed as to forget myself and the values I stand for.
You speak because you haven't gotten that position.
No. Let me tell you. Some of them, I understand that because essentially Ruto is now their boss. He's the president. He's their boss. Some of them are just keen on keeping their jobs and as long as possible. So they feel like they are overcompensating for certain
to remain relevant.
Yes.